York Giants lose to the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving, 28-20. The Giants played a really good first half, as good as they realistically could. Officiating was a factor in this game, and somewhat reminiscent. Honestly, this game was somewhat reminiscent to the Detroit Lions game last week. But at the end of the day, the Cowboys were the better team. We knew this going in, especially with a decimated Giant team. The Cowboys are just a much more talented football team. And the second half, the Cowboys really had their way with the Giants. That was really it for me. Is that second half was just all Dallas. Sure, the Giants got a touchdown late, but that didn't matter. All that did was cover the spread for the Giants, as they lost by 8. And the spread ended up at around 10, where the Cowboys were favored. But the Giants, a lot of the things that they've been good at this season have slipped away from them in recent weeks, where really good third down defense, really good red zone defense, and also really good on third downs offensively. But tonight, Giants 3 for 11 on third down, while the Cowboys were 7 for 11. And the Cowboys got it done in the key moments. Now, look, there were a lot of penalties in this game. I wish the refs had kind of stayed out of it. There were a lot of the Cowboys. There was 13 penalties on the Cowboys, 7 for the Giants. But a lot of these on both sides. But really, we're going to talk about those as we move along. But I still think that's a small part of the story. Kind of like how I felt with the Detroit game. Maybe more so here. I think the officiating was maybe more of a factor in this one, just because the plays in which there were flags were like really important plays within the game. But with that said, just the Giants are not as good as the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have beaten the Giants twice. In recent years, the Cowboys really have their way with the Giants. The only time the Giants have won within the last, since I guess maybe around 2017, 2018, thereabouts, is that last game of the 2020 season when the Giants beat the Cowboys to kind of keep their playoff hopes alive, only for the Eagles to lose on purpose to Washington. But, it would have been really nice to win. It sucks to lose to Dallas, but you move on. And I still look back at that last game against Detroit. And look, the Detroit Lions, and they showed this today again, they're a really good football. Really good is a stretch, but they are not bad. Like, you think of the Detroit Lions, but with that all being said, that's the game where the Giants were favored. And I know there were a lot of injuries in that game too, but they were favored and they really got smoked. And that's a big one. I think when you look back at the schedule, look, you lose 2 to the Dallas, and that's not great. And I think the one that you really let not slip away, but the one that was more winnable was that first game with Cooper Rush. And look, Dak Prescott first half was not good. Second half was really good in this one. But at Seattle, you can understand it. But yeah, home against Detroit, that one, that stings. But anyway, Giants dropped to 7-4. And yeah, like you look at all these statistics, and Dallas is basically heading all counts. 430 yards to 300. And like I said, a lot of those yards for the Giants were late and the game was over. So it was lopsided, no question about it. And, passing 261 to 210 Dallas, rushing 169 to 90. So Saquon Barkley has really dropped off in recent weeks. He really has. And so that's where give a lot of credit to Saquon for what was an amazing, let's call it first half. It was probably a little less than that, but first half of the season, Saquon Barkley, really good. But that burst is not really there. The explosiveness is not looking, like it did earlier on. And that's a problem. It is. And, obviously there was a short week here. You hope that Saquon can rest up and be a little bit fresher for that Washington game coming up, which is, we'll talk about the schedule that's ahead for the Giants. But Saquon Barkley really just doesn't look good. It's not even that the statistics are bad, and they are. He just doesn't look good at all, where you're seeing more bursts out of Gary Brightwell and Matt Breida. You just, the last 2 weeks, you're seeing that. And maybe, 35 carries for Barkley versus the Texans was too much. All is it to say that Barkley, when you think about the future, look, I don't think that I would give Saquon this big time contract. I don't think that's wise for many reasons. And this is a bit reactionary, but yeah, I do not think that Saquon Barkley is someone that should I know he's, the face of the franchise at the moment and, just a real good team guy. Like there's so many good things you could say about Saquon Barkley. However, look, the shelf life of running back isn't great to begin with. We know his injury history. And look, I'm a little bit concerned that he seems like he's breaking down is a bit strong. But just, he looks a bit timid. We're seeing a different Saquon Barkley. I'm not going to say that he looked like 2021 Barkley. That was really bad. I'm not going to go there, but we're getting a few more games like this and we're getting to that point. But Saquon, bad. Daniel Jones, not good. Daniel Jones in this game no. Whereas that first game against Dallas, where I felt like he was pressured a lot, he was making things happen. Like I felt it was a gutsy effort on Monday Night Football versus the Cowboys early in the season. Jones was not. I mean, there was a lot of short passes where Jones was inaccurate, and that's if you're Daniel Jones, you gotta there was no turnovers. There weren't, and the Giants won the turnover battle 2-0, and they still lost pretty handily when it was all said and done. That's the thing. But yeah, Daniel Jones, 21 for 35, 228 yards, 1 touchdown. So, you look at that and it's like, all right, not bad, but only 14 yards rushing. Again, the running game was basically non-existent for the Giants. And yeah, like Jones, it wasn't a good enough performance to help the team win. And I know that he doesn't have a lot to work with, but still, that is what that is for now. And on the other side, Dak Prescott, a real rough first half, but really flipped it completely around in the second half. And Zeke Elliott is someone who I watch him and he struggles a lot most of the time on it, really. But he's always good versus the Giants. Always. And look, 16 for 92 for a touchdown. It's a good day for Ezekiel Elliott. 16 for 92. Really good. Whereas Tony Pollard was actually kind of held in check. 18 for 60. He really was. And Tony Pollard, I kind of fear him more. But yeah, it was Ezekiel Elliott that really was a lot more effective. And Michael Gallup was very good in the first half, like really good. Then it became the CeeDee Lamb show in the second half. And that's where Adoree Jackson not playing, it comes into play. And I know that CeeDee Lamb did well the first time around. I think a lot of that was probably versus Adoree Jackson. But look, Darnay Holmes versus CeeDee Lamb, that's a mismatch. And there was some bad calls in there as well. The holding penalty, which is a really that first possession of the second half for the Cowboys was the first possession for the Cowboys and first possession for the Giants in the second half is where the game turned. And then that was it from there. That was the big moment. But yeah, look, Dallas is clearly the superior team. Like, that's just how it is. But yeah, Giants start out and, first play to Lawrence Cager, 20 yards. And you're thinking, all right, like off and running. But then things slow down. There was a deep pass for Slayton that was incomplete. And so, the Giants punt. And Jamie Gillen is just, and some of it is, actually on that one, McLeod on that one should have stopped it at the 1, and he didn't. He should have, or not at the 1, he should have at least kept that in. So I won't blame Gillen on that one, but Gillen is not good in terms of, keeping that ball inside the 10. It's usually a touchback. And Dallas gets the ball. But Dallas, and I didn't really understand why they did it. 4th and 2 at their own 40, they go for it, and they try to run. I mean, it was kind of a disrespectful call to the Giants, if I'm being honest. And he gets stuffed. Ezekiel Elliott stopped by the former Cowboy Jalen Smith. And actually, before I get into more of the play-by-play, let's just talk about real quick the injuries. There's a lot of them. Some more obvious than others. Obviously, I talk about Adoree Jackson. Wan'Dale Robinson, it was confirmed he's out for the season. But, no Fabian Moreau, so that just makes the secondary even tougher, from a Giant perspective. And the offensive line completely banged up. But some of the stuff, and I have to see who did well, who didn't do well. But, I was happy to see Nick Gates in at center. John Feliciano was out. I'm hoping that Nick Gates keeps that job because he did such a good job before he got hurt. And what an amazing comeback from really a gruesome injury. And so he was out. Who else was out for the Giants? Shane Lemieux, who I don't think that he would have really kept his job anyway. But more importantly, Josh Zudu was out. So left guard was, I guess, mostly Jack Anderson, who was inactive last week. The week before that was getting ripped apart by Brian Daboll. So it wasn't great. Tyree Phillips did play at right tackle, but Evan Neal is still out. Daniel Bellinger is still out. Azeez Ojulari is still out. I'm sure there's others that I'm forgetting. I mean, they're really banged up right now. So, yeah, but the Giants, they got that stop, and that's a good job. Jalen Smith was, pretty active. He seemed, like he did okay in this game. So the Giants got great field position, and it makes it even better. Chris Myrick, 23-yard catch. And here's the big play. 2nd and 17 at the Cowboy 24, and it looks like it's a touchdown. Daniel Jones to Isaiah Hodgins for 24 yards, but no, and this was frustrating, they call ineligible man downfield on Tyree Phillips. And it's just like, that has been, the Giants must have the most penalties for ineligible man downfield. And it just seems a bit ticky-tack. It has nothing to do with the play. Nothing to do with the play at all. And I don't know, it just, to me, that must happen a lot. And it's just, sometimes you're going to call and sometimes you're not. So that, to me, is frustrating, and I think that did not need to be called. And so the Giants do end up settling for a field goal, and it got worse. Like, there was a sack. Actually, no, there was intentional grounding, but let's not even get into that because they end up getting a 57-yard field goal. Graham Gano, 57-yard kick. Giants take a 3-0 lead, and then, even better, it's 2nd and 6 at the Giant 43. Interception by Rodarius Williams. So Rodarius comes back. This is his second game back, and he gets a pretty big interception. But the Giants, unfortunately, go 3-and-out. And so now Dallas has a really nice drive. They're down 3-0. They go 11 plays, 93 yards in just over 6 minutes. And this is where Michael Gallup gets a lot done. This is kind of the Gallup drive, but Ezekiel Elliott as well. And for good measure, to start the second quarter, and CeeDee Lamb has a big catch, a 25-yard catch as well, working against Nick McLeod. I thought, look, McLeod's coverage was decent. Cordell Flott was in the mix as well. Flott left the game with a concussion, so again, another injury to this secondary. But Elliott, 6-yard touchdown, and it's 7-3. But that response was there. The Giant response that we've seen a lot this season was there here. And the Giants moved the ball down the field. And there were some third down conversions involved. One mainly was Jones to Richie James. Really nice catch by Richie James, actually. Look, in the slot, Richie James has been okay. You think about those fumbles as a punt returner, but as the slot guy, Richie James, I know there were some drops early this season, but he's been okay for what he is. And the really big play here, and really the one big play that Darius Slayton makes in this game, is a 44-yard catch by Slayton to the 1. A decent throw by Jones, not amazing, but Slayton goes up and gets it. Really nice play. And on 2nd and 1, it is a Saquon Barkley rushing touchdown. So the Giants take a 10-7 lead. And then the Cowboys go 3-and-out. But unfortunately, the Giants also then go 3-and-out. And so that hurts where, and the Giants were really trying to throw the ball a lot early. But to make up for that, and why, this was such an effective half for the most part, on 3rd and 15 at the Giant 35, it's an interception. Dak Prescott is intercepted by Julian Love. So now the Giants have an opportunity to score points at the end of the half. And again, very conservative with the clock management with Daboll, a very conservative approach at the end of the first half. It's been a frequent thing. That's just what it is. And so Graham Gano, this ends up in a Graham Gano 47-yard field goal, which, look, you'll take it. And there was some key penalties here. There was a interception that was actually illegal contact, which I thought was the right call. Diggs, illegal contact, and so that prolonged the drive. Darius Slayton makes a 14-yard catch. But yeah, long story short, the Giants do get a field goal. And so they're up 13-7.5, and you're feeling okay about things. I mean, look, I still felt like we'd probably lose this game, but the Giants, they go to the second half, and this is the key drive. 14 plays, 75 yards. It is really the backbreaker. A 7-minute, 39-second drive. And what sucked is Kayvon Thibodeau, who was really good in this game. Thibodeau really deserves a lot of credit because I thought that he'd been struggling lately. It sucks that the results aren't there, though. And you're going to want to see those results happen sooner than later. You really are. And the one miscue I felt like he had was he had a chance to sack Dak Prescott and would have put them in a really tough situation, but Prescott scrambles out of it and puts them in a situation where it's 3rd and 4. And then Ezekiel Elliott, a 16-yard run. So, and then Tony Pollard, 13 yards. The run game is starting to work. The key play here, 3rd and 7, Prescott to Lamb incomplete, but they called defensive holding on Darnay Holmes. And that was just not a good call. Not a good call. So if he doesn't get that, Maher, who has a good leg, he did miss a field goal later in the game, but Maher would have had about a 55-yard field goal, which, okay, in a best-case scenario for Dallas, it's 3 points and not even guaranteed. But eventually the drive continues, and what's bad here is a 3rd and 12 conversion eventually from Prescott to Lamb. So you can't have that happen. And then to make things even worse, 3rd and goal at the 15, it is Prescott to Dalton Schultz. And this was after a false start, a touchdown. Like, on a 3rd and goal at the 15, like, it can't be that easy. He wasn't wide open, but that was just way too easy. Like, it just sucks that drive, a long drive, ends up in a touchdown. Like, if it ended up in 3, then, the Darnay Holmes penalty you can kind of forget about. The Thibodeau miss earlier, but that was just a debilitating drive. And then to make matters worse was the next drive for the Giants. This was, like I said, the key to the game was right here. And so you end up in a 4th and 1 situation at the 45, at their own 45, and they go for it. And I know a lot of people had a problem with it. I really didn't have much of a problem with it. You could tell the defense was really starting to struggle and that, the defense was on the field for a while. So they go for it. But what the biggest problem was here is the Giants only had 10 men on the field. And yet still, the play design was okay. It was a play where Jones had Saquon Barkley open, not a good throw by Daniel Jones, but still Saquon Barkley needs to catch the ball. It's dropped. Barkley was kind of stumbling, and he can't catch it. And so 14 to 13 game still. Cowboys now have the ball at the Giant 45. That was like the key play when I think about the Giants offense. Jones and Saquon both deserve blame for that play. But more goes into it. Having only 10 men on the field is completely unacceptable. And really from there, the Cowboys rolled. So 6 plays, 44 yards is for 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Very efficient. And again, it ends up in a Dalton Schultz touchdown. Schultz, a 6-yard touchdown reception. So that's touchdown for Dalton Schultz on back-to-back drives. And the Cowboys take a 21-13 lead. There was CeeDee Lamb is really starting to cook at this point. There was a 21-yard catch for CeeDee Lamb. And then the Giants punt. The New York Giants punt. On the next drive, Gary Brightwell is involved more in this drive. 15-yard run for Brightwell, then an 11-yard run. But then he gets slowed down a bit, and it leads to the Giants punting, and the Cowboys have the ball early 4th quarter. They go 10 plays, 80 yards, 5 minutes and 51 seconds. And it was pretty easy. Really the key here in terms of 3rd down conversions, and Ferguson makes a 30-yard catch. The Cowboy tight ends seemed pretty effective in this game. They really were. And on a 3rd and 11, it's CeeDee Lamb. 23 yards to the Giant 2, and it ends up in a Peyton Hendershot 2-yard run. So I think it was more of like an end-around type play. I think Hendershot's another tight end. Seems like the Cowboys have a million of them. But either way, Cowboys take a 28-13 lead, and now the Giants start going way slower than they should. There should have been more. And now look, do I think the Giants are going to come back at this point? No, but there was not much urgency. It's an 11-play drive that goes 5 minutes and 5:41. I mean, just a lot of running at this point. Barkley, Breida, Brightwell. There's some sacks. Daniel Jones gets sacked by Micah Parsons. Andrew Thomas, not his best game. He was dealing with an illness. So, you can understand. But, Micah Parsons was a factor there. And it ends up in a 4th and 9 at the 37. It's an incomplete pass. The Giants turn it over on downs. And the game is basically over at this point. The Cowboys have a 46-yard field goal attempt by Brett Maher that is no good, with 1:13 to go. And so in meaningless garbage time, the Giants score a touchdown. Richie James is, involved mostly. And so it's only fitting that he would end up with the 1-yard reception. Giants down 8, which I believe they also lost by 8 in the first game at MetLife, but that one felt a little bit closer I think the Giants even had the lead early in the fourth quarter in that game. But the Giants go for an onside kick. It's unsuccessful. Cowboys win at 28-20. And so they improved to 8-3 while the Giants dropped to 7-4. They, like I said, lost both games to Dallas this season. So the Cowboys have the tiebreaker over the Giants. Should those two teams finish with the same record? I don't think that they will. But if it somehow does happen that way. And now the Giants have let's look at the next 3 games. Washington, Philly, Washington. That is your season. That is now your season and how you do. And obviously the Washington games are the biggest games, but if you split with Washington, the next tiebreaker is the divisional record. And so that's where the Eagles games really are very important as well. Like the Eagle games hold more importance than, let's say, the Vikings and Colts games. Like those will come in handy. It's a very easy way to look at it. Look, the division at this point is it's a long shot, total long shot. Is it impossible? No, but if we're being totally honest, it's not going to happen. So now it's Washington is a very key team in this. And look, it's very simple. You beat Washington twice, you're basically as good as in. You lose to Washington twice, you're basically as good as out. And if you split with Washington, that's where things get interesting as far as tiebreakers. And that's where, to me, the Eagle games become important because Washington already beat Philly once. So that's the thing. So the next, I look at the next 3 games and just obviously the Washington games are the most important. But like I said, that Eagle game is also. You got to try to take 2 out of 3. You take it 1 game at a time, right? And so this Washington game, home against Washington, that's a close to a must-win game. We're not quite there yet. And that's why I say for the next 3 games, the Giants can go 2 out of 3 there. Then you're on a path to the playoffs. And that's kind of my hope. So they have a week and a half to recover. Hopefully they get a lot of key players back from injury. We'll see how Washington does this week. They play home against the Falcons, a game in which the Commanders are favored. Hopefully they somehow lose. The Falcons, they're still in the playoff hunt. They are. I mean, more so in NFC South terms than the wild card, but they're 5-6. But that'll be a very key game for the Giants to look at. I'm going to predict Washington wins that game, and if they do, and even if they lose, Commanders at Giants next week. That is, this season either goes completely south or this is just a blip on the radar. This is the Giants' first 2-game losing streak. How will they handle that? They've shown that they're a mentally strong team, but things have gotten pretty bad, and it's sink or swim time, and we will see what the Giants do in this stretch. Commanders, Eagles, Commanders. And for Washington, it's actually 2 straight with the Giants. They have a bye when the Giants are facing the Eagles. So they're kind of looking at it in a completely different way. But that is going to determine where things end up this season. Again, Giants lose on Thanksgiving. It is Giants 20, Cowboys 28.